Hi everyone, it's Stu here from 3B, and today I'm going to show you my final settings that I've finally got settled on with the firmware update 12.41.5. It's taken me a while to actually sort of hone in on the best settings that I've found for sort of movies and general viewing. And one that works well with easily moving it over to game mode. Just very quickly, the settings that I show work well on game mode, but all you need to do is go over and then turn game mode on, and the settings work okay with that. So let's move on. So picture mode, obviously at movie, and then we go to expert settings. Now backlight is very much a preference thing. 20 is kind of set for HDR anyway, and because there's more and more HDR content, and because I watch a lot of movies, Blu-ray and both streaming, a lot of these tend to be HDR now, so I tend to just leave it at 20. But again, it might be too bright for some. You know, there are times when you get like a bright white sort of splash screen for an introduction to a TV program or whatever, and it's just way too bright. Sometimes it blinds you, but it's for normal sort of viewing, it's great, but you can turn that down. It really doesn't affect the other settings too much at all. Brightness I've settled on 54 and contrast at 64. The reason being that I've sort of notched these down quite a bit is when I did the first one, the first sort of calibration settings video for 12.41.5, it was kind of washed out, and then I changed it over that same day to knock it down a bit. And the more I've watched, and it's one of these things you kind of have to really immerse yourself in content, and different content from ultra high definition movies, standard Blu-ray movies, streaming movies from HD to 4K to HDR, and gaming as well. So it's finding that balance, and normal terrestrial TV as well, as we can see sort of running behind here, we've got channel 4. And it's finding that balance that kind of works well with all. Unfortunately, and this is an odd thing, you would think that there would be an ability to have different settings saved for different things that you're watching. Say for streaming, you could have a settings just for streaming that you could also automatically recall, or for UHD movies on Blu-ray, you know, 4K Blu-ray. That, you know, it would be good if in the future, and I'm not too sure if any of these do this yet, where you could just have a quick select that's immediate from the menu that chooses the best setting for that you've adjusted personally for yourself for that particular format. Better still, if you could automatically, if this TV could automatically know that it's the UHD Blu-ray 4K player, and then it would automatically apply the settings that you have set for that. So anyway, rambling over. So brightness at 54, contrast at 64, sharpness at 16, just sort of notching it up a bit. This is more to do with sort of terrestrial TV more than anything. It doesn't tend to affect a lot of other things, but it's to sharpen up sort of terrestrial TV a little bit more. I always find the color on Samsung TVs sort of far too vivid and rich, so I sort of knock that down to make it a bit more natural. You have to understand that this is being recorded on my Samsung S10 Plus, and it may make the image that you see behind this menu appear overly colorful, whereas what I'm seeing is somewhat different, because I can see from the screen on my phone that it's actually a little bit too rich, whereas on the screen what I'm seeing is somewhat different. The green-red tint, green at 48, red at 52, apply to all sources. Digital clean view off, because we don't want it messing with the signal really too much. We don't want it starting to sort of change too many things. Again, analog clean view and auto motion plus off, because those tend to make this again is a preference thing. Some people really like that sort of artificial smoothness to the motion of sort of TV and so on. I really don't like it. To me, it doesn't feel natural. It feels like, you know, that what they call the soap opera effect. Smart LED, again, I've put this at high. I've tried changing it and working with it, and when I have it on off or low or medium, it tends to make the blacks a little bit grey. And I've tried changing the other settings so I could have the smart LED off, and again, I've not really found a lot of help with that. The same, and I work these two together, the smart LED and dynamic contrast. Again, if I have that off, it tends to make some of the blacks a little bit washed out, and some of the highlights in the between dark and bright, those differences seem to be a little bit washed out. There's no sort of real definition between the brightness and the dark of the image that you're seeing, and it tends to sort of make it feel like it's you're seeing a more washed out image than it should be. So smart LED at high, film mode off, HDMI UHD color to all sources, to all outputs, and dynamic contrast and HDMI black level low, that's automatically set. Dynamic contrast set at medium, and the color tone, again, this is a preference. Warm 2 is closer to the cinema sort of settings, so, you know, choose warm 2. To some, it can appear to be a tiny bit yellow, but it shouldn't be with all the other settings. But if it does, you know, you can of course choose cool or warm 1. But to me, warm 1, as we can see, appears a little bit too sort of blue for me. White balance, I've set to automatic. I could faff around with that, but it's a really tricky thing, and it's only something you can do if you've got an actual calibration thing sitting on my screen that will automatically do it for me. So I've left that off for now until I can get my hands on a white balance, well, on a professional calibration system that will allow me to do that properly. But just leave those as they are. They will be fine, because you know, it won't harm too much at all. And then color space set to auto, because that will be dictated by your source. So there we go. That's the settings that I'm working with, and I've settled on and feel comfortable with working with all sources. And just a quick note on the gaming again, just go to special viewing mode and then click game mode on. Oops, hold on. Game mode. How do we do that? I've forgotten how to do that. Why isn't it allowing me to? Oh, it's because I've not got a console connected, I don't think. Yeah, so you can turn game mode on, it should work, and I have had it work with these settings, but I think when I did that, it was actually connected to my Xbox at the time, and it could tell that it was a console. I believe that's the problem that I'm seeing there. Anyway, those are the settings. I hope they're helpful. Please feel free to share, give me a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing, and don't forget to click the bell to be alerted when I've done more videos. Thanks again. Take care and see you soon.